I watched through the rain-streaked taxi window as my mother and sister loaded the last suitcase into their car. They were leaving for the airport, leaving for Paris, leaving without me. Please, I had begged just an hour ago, standing in our living room with my acceptance letter clutched in my trembling hands. The scholarship covers everything. The tuition, the housing, even a stipend. I just need the plane ticket. Just one plane ticket. My mother hadn't even looked up from her phone. Claire needs me in Paris to help her settle into her design program. You know how sensitive she is. Besides, your little state college scholarship isn't going anywhere. You can start in the spring semester. But Mom, this is the International Fashion Institute. It's a full scholarship. If I defer, I lose it. They made that clear. Claire had smiled then. That sweet, poisonous smile I knew so well. Oh, Lily, don't be so dramatic. There will be other opportunities. Not everyone gets to study in Paris at the most prestigious design school in the world. Mom needs to help me because, well, I'm actually going to make something of myself. My father had just sighed and retreated to his study, the same way he always did when conflict arose. The same way he'd been doing my entire life. Now, as I watched them drive away, I felt something inside me shift. Not break. It had broken so many times before that there was nothing left to break. No, this was different. This was a cold, crystalline clarity settling over me like frost. Because I had seen this moment before. I had lived this entire day before. In my previous life, I had stood at this window and cried. I had called my mother's phone 17 times. I had sent desperate messages to Claire, begging her to convince Mom to come back. I had even tried to reach out to distant relatives, anyone who might lend me the money for a plane ticket. No one had helped. I had missed my scholarship. I had enrolled at the state college in the spring, studying business because I couldn't afford the art program. I had worked 3 jobs to pay for it, and I had watched from afar as Claire's mediocre designs I had helped her with, designs I had practically created for her, earned her acclaim in Paris. Then, 5 years later, I had been in a car accident. Not a dramatic one, just a stupid, mundane crash on a rainy Tuesday. I had been driving home from my 3rd job, exhausted, and I hadn't seen the truck running the red light. I had died at 23, broken and alone, with $60,000 in student debt and a business degree I'd never wanted. But then I had woken up. I had woken up in my childhood bedroom, in my 18-year-old body, on the morning of my high school graduation. The morning 6 months before this moment, the morning I was given a second chance, and I had spent those 6 months planning. I pulled out my phone, not to call my mother this time. Instead, I opened my banking app and smiled at the balance. $35,000, money I had earned through a series of strategic investments in stocks I knew from my previous life were about to explode. Money I had made by betting on sports outcomes I already knew. Money I had accumulated by selling predictions to desperate gamblers who thought I was just incredibly lucky. It was enough. More than enough. I dialed a number I had saved 2 months ago. "Ms. Chen," I said when she answered, "this is Lily Morrison. I'm ready to accept your offer." There was a pause, then a warm laugh. "The apartment in New York? I was wondering if you'd changed your mind. It's still available." "Perfect. I'll wire you the first month's rent and deposit today. I'll be there by the end of the week." I could hear the surprise in her voice. "I thought you were meant to be going to Paris. For that fashion program?" "Change of plans," I said, watching my mother's car disappear around the corner. "I'm pursuing a different opportunity." After I hung up, I stood there for a moment, feeling the weight of my decision. In my previous life, I had chased after them. I had tried so desperately to catch up, to earn their love, to prove I was worthy of their attention. This time, I wasn't going to try to catch up at all. I was going to let them run ahead while I built an empire they couldn't even imagine. The abuse hadn't started all at once. It never does it? It creeps in slowly, like mold growing behind the walls, invisible until the structure starts to rot. When I was 7, my mother had a second daughter, Claire. Beautiful blonde Claire, with her big blue eyes and her charming laugh. I had been excited to have a sister. I had imagined us sharing secrets, braiding each other's hair, being best friends. Instead, I became invisible. It wasn't that my parents stopped loving me, though sometimes I wondered if they ever had. It was that Claire needed so much. She was a sensitive child, a special child. She needed extra attention, extra care, extra everything. My mother quit her job to focus on Claire full-time. My father worked longer hours to compensate, and I learned to make myself small, to need nothing, to be grateful for the scraps of attention that occasionally fell my way. When Claire cried about a bad grade, my mother would spend hours comforting her, even calling the teacher to advocate for a retest. When I brought home straight A's, I'd get a distracted, "That's nice, dear," before the conversation shifted back to Claire's latest crisis. When Claire wanted piano lessons, we got a piano. When Claire wanted to try ballet, then soccer, then tennis, then painting, we paid for it all. When I asked if I could take an art class at the community center, just one class, $40 for 6 weeks, my mother said we couldn't afford it. By the time I was 13, I had learned that the only way to survive in my family was to be useful to Claire. So I helped her with her homework. I let her copy my essays. I stayed up late helping her study for tests she should have been studying for herself. I sacrificed my own interests, my own dreams, my own identity, all to make Claire's life easier. And she took it all without a second thought. The financial abuse escalated as we got older. When I got my first job at 15, my mother asked me to contribute to the household expenses. "Just until things settle down," she said. Things never settled down. By 16, I was paying for my own clothes, my own school supplies, even my own food half the time. Meanwhile, Claire got a brand new car for her 16th birthday. I rode the bus. When it came time to apply for college, my parents sat Claire down at the dining room table and spent weeks helping her research schools, edit essays, prepare for interviews. They hired a private college counselor. They took her on tours of campuses across the country. I applied to colleges in secret in the 30 minutes I could spare between my homework and my part-time job. I wrote my essays on my phone during my lunch breaks. I paid the application fees with money I earned cleaning houses on weekends. And when I got that scholarship to the International Fashion Institute, one of the most prestigious programs in the world, a full ride, everything paid for except travel, my mother's response was to tell me it could wait. Because Claire had gotten into a design school in Paris. Not on scholarship, not even into a particularly prestigious program, but it was in Paris, and Claire wanted it, so Claire got it. They were spending $40,000 a year to send Claire to a mediocre school in Paris while telling me I could defer my full scholarship to a world-renowned program. That was when I had given up in my previous life. That was when something inside me had broken so completely that it never healed. But I had been granted something rare, something miraculous. I had been granted the knowledge of how this story ended. In my first life, Claire had spent 2 years in Paris, dropping out after she got bored and wanted to find herself in Southeast Asia. She had never finished her degree. My parents had supported her through it all, sending her money, making excuses, telling everyone that she was taking a gap year to travel, as if that made it sound less like failure. I, meanwhile, had graduated with my business degree and gotten a job at a marketing firm. I had worked my way up to a junior manager position. I had been making $45,000 a year when I died, still paying off my student loans, still living in a cramped studio apartment I could barely afford. And do you want to know the worst part? At my funeral, because yes, I somehow knew about my own funeral. Perhaps I had hovered there as a ghost, or perhaps it was just a dream in those final moments. My mother had cried and said, "She was such a good girl, so responsible. I just wish she'd been happier," as if my unhappiness had been my own fault, as if she hadn't spent 23 years making sure I knew I was worth less than her golden child. But I had been given a second chance, and I had spent the last 6 months preparing for this exact moment, the moment they left me behind, the moment I could finally be free. I had discovered the rebirth 2 days after I woke up in my teenage body. At first, I thought I was having a vivid dream. But then I realized I remembered everything. Every date, every event, every stock price crash and surge, every mistake I'd made and every opportunity I'd missed. I had tested it carefully. Small things at first. I predicted the winner of a basketball game and placed a small bet with a classmate. Then I predicted a pop quiz in chemistry. Then I guessed that Mrs. Henderson's husband was having an affair. I'd heard her crying about it in the teacher's lounge in my previous life. Each time I was right, and each time I became more certain. This was real. I really had been sent back. But I also knew I couldn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? And more importantly, if my family knew I had foreknowledge of the future, they would find a way to exploit it. They would use it for Claire's benefit, not mine. So I kept it secret, and I started planning. First, I opened a trading account under a fake name. Easy enough when you know which sketchy crypto exchanges don't verify identity thoroughly. I started with $50 I'd saved from my babysitting job. Within a month, I turned it into $500 by betting on sports outcomes through various online platforms. Within 3 months, I'd turned that into $5,000 by making strategic investments in stocks I knew were about to surge. I was careful. I spread my investments across different platforms. I used VPNs. I withdrew in cash when I could. I knew I was technically committing fraud, but I also knew I'd be 18 soon enough and I could transfer everything to legitimate accounts then. By the time I turned 18, 3 weeks before graduation, I had $35,000 in clean, legitimate money sitting in a bank account my parents didn't know existed. I had also been making other preparations. I had researched every major fashion competition and opportunity that would arise in the next 5 years. I had been secretly taking online courses in fashion design, business management, and marketing. I had taught myself to sew properly using YouTube videos. I had been sketching designs every night after my family went to sleep, building a portfolio that combined the raw talent I'd had in my previous life with the discipline and knowledge I'd gained from living it once already. Most importantly, I had been networking. In my previous life, I'd learned that success in the fashion industry wasn't just about talent, it was about connections. So I'd spent the last 6 months cultivating relationships online with industry professionals, being helpful in forums, offering thoughtful commentary on designs, building a reputation as someone knowledgeable and passionate. And 3 months ago, I'd caught the attention of Elena Vasquez. Elena Vasquez was a legend in the fashion industry. She'd started her own line in her 20s and had built it into a multi-million-dollar empire. She was known for discovering and mentoring young talent. She was also notoriously selective about who she chose to work with. I had sent her a portfolio of my designs with a carefully crafted letter explaining my vision for sustainable, affordable fashion that didn't sacrifice beauty for ethics. I had known from my previous life's research that Elena was passionate about sustainability. I had known exactly what to say to catch her attention. She had responded within a week, not with a job offer. I was still in high school after all, but with an invitation to visit her studio in New York if I was ever in the area. "I'd love to see more of your work," she'd written. "You have a unique perspective." I had been careful not to seem too eager. I'd waited 2 weeks before responding, thanking her and saying I'd love to visit someday when I was in New York for college. "Are you applying to schools here?" she'd asked in her next email. "I've been considering it," I'd replied, which was true. "Though I'm still figuring out my options." We'd corresponded a few times after that. Nothing too frequent. I didn't want to seem desperate or annoying. But enough that when I finally called her 3 days ago and explained my situation, an edited version where I'd lost a scholarship due to family financial complications, she had immediately offered to help. "I have a studio apartment in Brooklyn that I've been renting out," she'd said. "My previous tenant just left. It's not fancy, but it's affordable and it's in a good neighborhood. If you're serious about pursuing fashion, New York is where you need to be anyway. Come work with me as an intern. I can't pay you much, but I can teach you everything I know." It was the opportunity of a lifetime. And it was happening because I had planned for it, worked for it, and made it happen myself. Not because someone had handed it to me, not because I had chased after my family, begging for scraps, but because I had chosen to walk a different path entirely. The turning point had come yesterday, the day before my family left for Paris. I had been sitting in my room looking at my acceptance letter from the International Fashion Institute when Claire had knocked on my door. "Hey," she'd said, leaning against the doorframe. "So, Mom told me about your scholarship thing." "It's not a thing," I'd said quietly. "It's a full scholarship to one of the best fashion programs in the world." She'd shrugged. "Yeah, but you'll be fine. You're good at figuring things out. You always land on your feet." The casual cruelty of it had taken my breath away. In my previous life, I had internalized that statement. I had believed that I was fine, that I would land on my feet, that I didn't need help because I was strong enough to survive anything. But survival isn't the same as thriving. and I was done with just surviving. "You're right," I'd said, smiling at her. "I will figure it out." She'd looked relieved. "Great, so you're not mad?" "Not at all," I'd lied. "Have an amazing time in Paris. I know you'll do great things there." She'd beamed at me, oblivious as always. "Thanks, Lily. You're the best sister." After she'd left, I had sat there for a long moment, feeling the weight of my decision settle over me. I could have told them about Elena. I could have explained that I had another option, a better option. I could have shared my plans, but I knew exactly what would happen if I did. My mother would ask questions. She would want to meet Elena. She would insert herself into my opportunity the same way she'd inserted herself into every aspect of Claire's life. And once she knew I had money saved, she would find a way to claim it. For family expenses, for emergencies, for Claire. Or worse, Claire would decide she wanted to work with Elena instead. And my parents would make it happen for her, the same way they made everything happen for her. No, this was mine, and I was going to keep it that way. So I had called Elena and accepted her offer. I had bought a bus ticket to New York for the day after my family left for Paris. I had packed my bags with the essentials, clothes, my laptop, my sketches, the few possessions that actually mattered to me. And I had written a note. Not a long one, nothing dramatic. Just, "Gone to pursue an opportunity in New York. I'll be fine, don't worry about me. Lily." I left it on the kitchen counter where they'd find it when they came back from the airport. And then I had stood at that window and watched them drive away. The bus ride to New York took 6 hours. I spent most of it sketching, refining designs I'd been working on for months, thinking about the future I was building. My phone rang 4 times during the trip, my mother. I didn't answer. She left voicemails. The first one was irritated. "Lily, where are you? We're at the airport and your father just noticed your note. This is unacceptable. Call me back immediately." The second one was more worried. "Lily, please call me back. We need to talk about this. You can't just run off to New York without discussing it with us. What about college? What about your future?" The third one was angry. "Lily Morrison, I am your mother and you will call me back right now. This is incredibly irresponsible and selfish. Do you have any idea how worried we are?" I almost laughed at that one. Worried. They were worried now, after 18 years of benign neglect. After leaving me behind for Claire, one time too many. The fourth voicemail was from my father. "Lily, come home. Let's talk about this. I'm sure we can work something out." I deleted all of them without responding. When I arrived in New York, Elena was waiting for me at the bus station. She was in her early 40s with silver-streaked black hair pulled back in a neat bun, wearing a crisp white shirt and perfectly tailored pants. She looked exactly like her photos, but more commanding in person. "Lily Morrison?" she asked, extending her hand. "Ms. Vasquez," I said, shaking it. "Thank you so much for this opportunity." She studied me for a moment with sharp, assessing eyes. "You ran away from home." It wasn't a question. "I left home," I corrected. I'm 18, legally an adult." "But your family doesn't approve." I met her gaze steadily. "My family has never approved of anything I've wanted to do. That's why I'm here." Something shifted in her expression. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. "Good," she said. "Because the fashion industry will eat you alive if you're waiting for approval. Come on, let's get you settled." The apartment in Brooklyn was small but perfect. One room with a tiny kitchen area, a bathroom, and a window that looked out onto a tree-lined street. It was furnished simply, a bed, a desk, a small couch, a table with 2 chairs. It was the first place that had ever felt like mine. "Rent is $800 a month, utilities included," Elena said. "I know that's a lot on an intern's salary, but I can afford it," I said quickly. I've been saving." She raised an eyebrow. "Good, shows you're serious. The studio is a 15-minute subway ride from here. I'll expect you there at 9 a.m. tomorrow. We open to the public at 10, but we do our design work early. Wear something practical. You'll be spending a lot of time on your feet." "I'll be there," I promised. After she left, I unpacked my few belongings and sat on the edge of my new bed, looking around at my new life. My phone buzzed. Another call from my mother. I silenced it. Then I opened my laptop and started working on a design I'd been planning for weeks. A collection inspired by rebirth and transformation. Dresses that looked simple at first glance but revealed hidden complexity in their construction. Garments that appeared delicate but were built to last. Fashion as metaphor. I worked until 2 in the morning, my fingers flying over the keyboard as I refined sketches, made notes, planned out patterns. When I finally fell asleep, I dreamed of my previous life. Of that cramped studio apartment. Of those 3 jobs. Of that rainy Tuesday and the truck I hadn't seen coming. I woke up at 6 a.m. in my new apartment in Brooklyn, alive and young and free, and I got ready to build the empire I should have had all along. The next 6 months were the hardest and most exhilarating of both my lives. Working for Elena was intense. She was a perfectionist who demanded excellence in every detail, from the stitching on a hem to the way we greeted customers in the showroom. She was also generous with her knowledge, teaching me not just about design, but about the business side of fashion. Sourcing materials, managing inventory, marketing, networking, pricing strategies. I absorbed everything like a sponge. I worked 12-hour days, 6 days a week. I assisted with client consultations, learning to read people's body language and understand what they really wanted versus what they said they wanted. I helped with fashion shows, seeing firsthand how much work went into creating those 3-minute runway presentations. I learned about sustainable sourcing, visiting fabric suppliers, and asking endless questions about where materials came from and how they were produced. And in my spare time, I continued my own designs. Elena had given me permission to use the studio after hours for my own projects, as long as I bought my own materials. So I would work on her projects all day, then stay late into the night working on my collection. I financed it with the remainder of my savings, and with money I continued to make through strategic investments. I was more careful now. I didn't want to attract attention with suspiciously accurate predictions, but I had enough foreknowledge to make safe, profitable investments. My family continued to call for the first few weeks. My mother's voicemails cycled through anger, guilt-tripping, and occasional attempts at reconciliation. My father's were briefer, more awkward, mostly asking me to think about what I was doing. Claire only called once, 2 weeks after they'd arrived in Paris. "Mom says you're being ridiculous," she said without preamble. "You need to come home and apologize." "Apologize for what?" I asked. "For running away. For worrying everyone. For being selfish." I had laughed. Actually laughed. "Claire, you and Mom left me behind to go to Paris. How is it selfish for me to pursue my own opportunity?" "That's different. I need Mom's support. You've always been independent. You don't need anyone." There it was again, that casual cruelty disguised as a compliment. "You're right," I said softly. "I don't need anyone. Not anymore." I hung up and blocked all their numbers. If they really wanted to reach me, they could email, but they didn't. After that call, there was silence, which was fine. I had too much to do to waste time on people who had never valued me anyway. 3 months into my internship, Elena invited me into her office. "Sit," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. I sat, trying not to look nervous. Had I done something wrong? "I've been watching you," she said. "The way you work with clients. The way you understand design. The way you've been coming in early and staying late." She paused. "I've also seen what you've been working on after hours." My stomach dropped. Was she angry? Did she think I was stealing time or resources? "They're extraordinary," she said quietly. "Your designs, that collection you're building, it's unlike anything I've seen from someone your age. It's mature, thoughtful, technically skilled, and deeply personal." She leaned forward. "Where did you learn to design like that?" I couldn't tell her the truth, so I told her a version of it. "I've been studying for years," I said. Secretly, mostly. My family, they never supported it. They thought fashion was frivolous. So I taught myself. Online courses, books, practice, years of practice. She nodded slowly. "And that's why you left home." "That's why I left home." "Good." She pulled out a folder. "I want to enter your collection in the Young Designers competition next month. Have you heard of it?" I had. In my previous life, I'd watched Claire enter and fail to place. It was one of the most prestigious competitions for emerging designers, judged by industry leaders, covered by major fashion publications. Yes, I managed, but I don't think I'm ready. You are, Elena said firmly. More than ready, and you're going to win. The Young Designers competition was held in Manhattan on a cold November evening. The venue was a converted warehouse in Chelsea, all exposed brick and dramatic lighting, filled with fashion industry professionals, journalists, and aspiring designers. I stood backstage with my collection, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. There were 30 designers competing. Most were in their 20s or early 30s. Most had formal training from prestigious schools. Most had financial backing from family or investors. I was 19 years old, self-taught, financing my entry with money I'd made from predicting the future and working 70-hour weeks. I shouldn't have been here, but I was. Elena found me before the show started. Breathe, she said, placing her hands on my shoulders. You've done the work. The collection is beautiful. Now trust it. What if I fail? I whispered. Then you fail, she said, and you learn from it and you try again. But Lily, she smiled, you're not going to fail. The show began. One by one, designers presented their collections. 3 models per designer, 3 looks, 3 minutes to make an impression. Some collections were avant-garde and unwearable. Some were technically proficient but boring. Some were trying so hard to be edgy that they'd circled back to derivative. And then it was my turn. My collection was called Phoenix. 3 pieces that told a story of destruction and rebirth. The first look was the before, a dress that appeared burned and tattered, made from silk that I'd carefully treated to look singed and damaged. But the construction underneath was perfect, showing that beneath the destruction was something resilient. The second look was the transformation, a suit that looked simple and professional from the front, but had a back panel that resembled wings made from layered organza in shades of red, orange, and gold. It was meant to represent the moment of change when you're caught between who you were and who you're becoming. The third look was the rebirth, a gown in brilliant shades of gold and red that looked like fire-made fabric. It was structured but flowing, powerful but elegant, combining elements from the first 2 pieces to create something entirely new. As my models walked the runway, I held my breath. The audience was silent. Then, as the third model reached the end of the runway and turned, someone started clapping, then another person. Then the entire room erupted in applause. I felt tears sting my eyes. When all the designers had presented, the judges deliberated for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. Then the head judge, a legendary designer whose work I'd studied for years, took the microphone. This year's competition brought us incredible talent, she said. But one collection stood out for its technical skill, its emotional depth, and its unique perspective on transformation and resilience. She paused for effect. The winner of this year's Young Designers competition is Lily Morrison for her collection Phoenix. The room exploded with applause again. Elena was hugging me, crying, saying something I couldn't hear over the roaring in my ears. I walked to the stage in a daze and accepted the trophy, the check for $10,000, and the promise of editorial coverage in major fashion magazines. Can you tell us about your inspiration? The judge asked, holding the microphone between us. I thought about my previous life, about dying at 23, broken and alone, about waking up and being given a second chance, about watching my family drive away and choosing, for the first time in my life, to walk a different path. It's about refusing to stay broken, I said. It's about the moment when you realize that the people who hurt you don't get to define your future. It's about burning away everything that doesn't serve you and being reborn as someone stronger. The audience loved it. The press loved it. And the next morning, my phone, which I'd unblocked my family's numbers on just in case, exploded with messages. My mother, Lily, I saw you won that competition. That's wonderful. We should talk about your future. Maybe you should come back home and we can discuss. Claire, OMG. I didn't know you were doing fashion. Why didn't you tell me? We could have been working together. Maybe I could come to New York and... My father. Congratulations. Call your mother, Ite. She's very upset that she had to learn about this from a magazine. I stared at the messages for a long time. Then I deleted them and turned off my phone. They didn't get to have this. They didn't get to be part of my success after spending 18 years ensuring I knew I wasn't worth investing in. I had won. Not because of them, not even in spite of them, but because I had walked away and built something they couldn't touch. The success from the competition opened doors I hadn't even known existed. Within a week, I had meeting requests from 3 major fashion houses, 2 investors interested in helping me start my own line, and an offer to be featured in a documentary about young designers. Elena was ecstatic. "This is your moment," she kept saying. "This is what I knew you could do." I chose carefully. I didn't want to be absorbed into a major fashion house, losing my identity in someone else's vision. I didn't want investors who would try to control my artistic direction. What I wanted was to build something myself. So I took the $10,000 prize money and combined it with my savings. I found a small studio space in Brooklyn, not much more than a large room with good light, and I started my own line. I called it Resilient. The concept was simple. Fashion that told stories about survival, about overcoming, about refusing to let circumstances break you. Every piece would be beautiful, but also practical, wearable, but also meaningful. Elena became my mentor officially, advising me on business decisions, introducing me to suppliers and manufacturers who would work with a small, independent designer. I hired 2 other designers, both women who'd graduated from fashion programs but couldn't afford to start their own lines. I paid them fairly and gave them creative freedom. I built the kind of workplace I'd always wished had existed for me. Within 6 months, we had our first full collection ready. Within a year, we were being carried in 3 boutiques in New York and 2 in Los Angeles. Within 18 months, we were profitable. I was 20 years old and I owned a growing fashion company. My family continued to try to reach out occasionally. My mother's messages became increasingly transparent. "We'd love to see you. Maybe we could visit. We've been having some financial difficulties and we thought perhaps..." I never responded. Claire actually showed up at my studio one day, 2 years after I'd left home. She'd dropped out of her Paris program and was back in the US, figuring out her next steps. "Lily," she said, bursting through the door like we were long-lost friends instead of estranged sisters. "Oh my God, this place is amazing. I can't believe you did all this." I looked up from the design I was working on. She looked the same. Blonde, pretty, wearing clothes that probably cost more than my rent. "Claire," I said neutrally, What are you doing here?" "I wanted to see you, to see what you've been doing. Mom showed me the articles about you. You're like, actually famous now." "Did she send you?" Claire's smile faltered. "What? No, I wanted to see you myself. We're sisters, Lily. I've missed you." I set down my pencil. "Have you? Because you didn't seem to miss me the day you and Mom left me behind. Or any of the 18 years before that when you took everything I had and never once said thank you." "That's not fair," she said, her eyes filling with tears, her signature move when she wasn't getting her way. "I was just a kid. I didn't know Mom was treating you badly." "Yes, you did," I said quietly, but you knew exactly what was happening. You just didn't care because you were benefiting from it." "I'm here now," she said desperately. "I want to make it right. I want us to be sisters again. And I thought maybe I could work with you. I'm really good at social media and marketing. I could help you grow the brand." There it was. She didn't want to reconnect because she missed me. She wanted access to what I'd built. "No," I said simply. "What?" "No, you can't work here, and no, I'm not interested in reconnecting." Her tears dried up surprisingly quickly. "You're being really petty, you know that? You're punishing me for things that happened years ago. I thought you'd be more mature about this." I smiled. "I am being mature about it. The mature thing is recognizing that you're toxic and removing you from my life. Now please leave." She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and stormed out. I never saw her again. By the time I was 23, the age I died in my previous life, I was running a multi-million-dollar fashion company with stores in 6 cities and an online presence that reached customers worldwide. I'd been featured in Vogue, Elle, and Harper's Bazaar. I'd dressed celebrities for red carpets. I'd given a TED Talk about sustainable fashion and ethical business practices. I'd also quietly donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to scholarships for young designers from low-income families, to programs that provided business training for women entrepreneurs, to organizations that supported survivors of family abuse. I'd bought a beautiful apartment in Manhattan with a view of Central Park. I'd traveled to Paris, Tokyo, Milan, London for fashion weeks. I'd built a life that was entirely mine. And I'd done it all without my family's help. Elena had become like a mother to me, the mother I'd always needed. She'd celebrated every success, helped me through every failure, given me advice when I asked for it and space when I needed it. I'd also built friendships with other designers, other entrepreneurs, other people who understood what it meant to work hard for what you had. I was happy, but I wasn't satisfied yet. Because there was one more thing I needed to do. The event was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, a retrospective exhibition called American Fashion: The New Generation. It featured 10 designers under 30 who were reshaping American fashion. I was one of them. The exhibition had been in the works for a year. It was a huge honor, the kind of recognition that cemented a designer's place in fashion history. And I had made sure, through careful manipulation of the guest list and strategic communication with the museum's development office, that my family would be there. They came because they couldn't resist. The exhibition was covered by every major publication. There would be celebrities, industry leaders, people they could network with. I saw them arrive. My mother, older now, with more gray in her hair. My father, still uncomfortable in a suit, still looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. And Claire, now 25, dressed in an outfit that was trying too hard to look designer. They didn't see me at first. I was standing near my section of the exhibition, wearing a simple black dress I'd designed myself, accepting congratulations from various guests. But eventually, inevitably, they made their way to my section. My collection was displayed on 3 mannequins arranged in a triptych. Phoenix, the collection that had won me the Young Designers competition 5 years ago. The pieces had been preserved and were now part of a museum exhibition. My mother saw the name card first. Lily Morrison, designer and founder of Resilient. She turned, scanning the crowd, and finally her eyes landed on me. I smiled and walked over. "Hello, Mom. Dad, Claire." My mother's hand flew to her mouth. "Lily! Oh my God, you're one of the featured designers?" "I am," I said calmly. Claire was staring at the mannequins, at the dresses, at the information card that detailed my career. "You did all this? By yourself?" "Yes." My father cleared his throat. "Lily, we've been trying to reach you for years now. You never responded to any of our messages." "I know," I said. "I've been busy building a career." My mother reached for my hand. I stepped back slightly, just out of reach. "Lily, I know we've had our differences," she said, her voice trembling. "But surely we can move past that now. You're successful, you're happy, and we're so proud of you. We're family. Can't we start over?" I looked at her, really looked at her. I tried to find some feeling, anger, hurt, even nostalgia. But there was nothing. She was just a woman who'd failed me, who'd chosen one daughter over the other, who'd never bothered to see my worth until it was too big to ignore. "No," I said simply. "What?" my mother whispered. "No, we can't start over. You're here because you saw my success in magazines. You're here because you think there's something in it for you now. You're not here because you're sorry. You're not here because you love me. You're here because you finally realized I was worth something." "That's not," my mother started. "It is," I said firmly. "For 18 years, you taught me that I was worth less than Claire, that my dreams didn't matter, that my needs could wait. You left me behind when I needed you most, so I did exactly what you taught me to do. I stopped needing you." Claire was crying now. "We didn't know we were hurting you so badly." "Yes, you did. I said. You just didn't care, but that's okay. Because it taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. That I didn't need you to succeed. That I was better off without you. Lily, please, my father said. We're your family. No, I said. You're people I used to live with. Elena is my family. My employees are my family. The people who showed up for me when I had nothing, who supported me when I was building something from scratch, who celebrated my successes and helped me through my failures, those are my family. You're just strangers who happen to share my DNA. A small crowd had gathered, drawn by the emotion of our conversation. I recognized a few journalists, some with their phones out. Good. Let them report this. Let the world know that success doesn't require the approval of people who never valued you in the first place. My mother was crying openly now. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. I was a terrible mother. I can see that now. Please, give me a chance to make it right. I felt a flicker of something then. Not forgiveness, it was too late for that. But maybe pity. Maybe just sadness for all the years we'd wasted. For the relationship we could have had if she'd been a different person. I hope you are sorry, I said quietly. I hope you lie awake at night thinking about what you lost. I hope you look at Claire and wonder if you made the right choice. I hope you realize that the daughter you neglected built an empire while the daughter you coddled has done nothing with the opportunities you gave her. Claire gasped. That's cruel, Lily. Is it? I asked. Or is it just the truth? I looked at each of them one last time. I don't hate you, I said. I don't feel anything about you at all anymore. You don't get to be part of my life. You don't get to claim credit for my success. You don't get to tell people I'm your daughter and bask in reflected glory. When people ask about me, you'll tell them the truth, that you had a daughter you neglected and she succeeded anyway without you. I turned to walk away. Lily, my mother called. Please, don't leave like this. I stopped and looked back over my shoulder. You left me behind first, I said. I just never bothered to catch up. And then I walked away, into the crowd of people who actually valued me, toward the life I'd built from ashes and determination. I never looked back. The confrontation at the Met went viral. Someone had recorded it and posted it online. Within days, it had millions of views. People on social media were divided. Some thought I was too harsh, that I should forgive my family. Others praised me for setting boundaries, for refusing to let toxic people back into my life just because we shared blood. I didn't comment on any of it. I just kept working. But the publicity did something I hadn't expected. It brought other people forward. People who'd been neglected by their families. People who'd been told they weren't good enough, weren't worth investing in, didn't deserve support. People who'd succeeded anyway. They reached out to share their stories. They thanked me for being visible, for showing that it was okay to walk away from people who hurt you, even if they were family. And I realized that my story, both the story of my previous life's tragedy and my current life's triumph, could help other people. So I wrote a book. It was part memoir, part business guide, part self-help. I called it Phoenix Rising, Building Success from the Ashes of Neglect. I didn't mention the rebirth, obviously. That would have been too unbelievable. Instead, I wrote about the patterns of family abuse I'd experienced, the moment I decided to leave, the challenges of building a business from scratch with no support system, the importance of finding your own family among people who choose to love you. The book became a bestseller. I went on a book tour, speaking at universities and business conferences. I talked about resilience, about self-worth, about the importance of walking away from people and situations that don't serve you. And everywhere I went, people told me I'd changed their lives. By the time I was 25, I had everything I'd ever dreamed of in my previous life and more. I had a thriving business that employed over 100 people. I had financial security, enough money that I'd never have to worry about rent or student loans, or whether I could afford groceries. I had a chosen family, Elena, my designers, friends I'd made in the industry who understood and valued me. I had a platform to help other people who'd experienced what I had. And most importantly, I had peace. I had the knowledge that I'd done it myself, that my success was mine alone, that no one could take it from me or claim credit for it. I had chosen not to catch up to the people who'd left me behind. Instead, I'd raced past them so fast they couldn't even see my dust. One evening, 5 years after the confrontation at the Met, I was in my office going through designs for the next season when Elena knocked on my door. "You have a visitor," she said. "I don't have any meetings scheduled," I replied, not looking up from my sketches. "I know, but I think you should see her." Something in her tone made me look up. "Who is it?" "Your mother." I felt my stomach clench. "Tell her I'm not available." "Lily," Elena said gently. "She's been waiting for 3 hours. She says she just wants 5 minutes, that's all." I wanted to say no. Every instinct told me to say no, to maintain the boundaries I'd worked so hard to establish. But I was also curious. It had been 5 years. What could she possibly want now? "Fine," I said, "in this 5 minutes." Elena nodded and left. A moment later, my mother appeared in the doorway. She looked old. That was my first thought. She'd aged more than 5 years in the time since I'd seen her. Her hair was completely gray now. She was thinner, her clothes hanging loose on a frame that had once been fuller. "Hello, Lily," she said quietly. "5 minutes?" I said, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. "Start talking." She sat down carefully like she was afraid of breaking something. "I'm not here to ask for anything," she said. "I just wanted to tell you that you were right." I raised an eyebrow. "About what?" "About everything. About the way I treated you, about choosing Claire over you, about failing you as a mother." She looked down at her hands. "I've had a lot of time to think about it. Claire moved back in with us 3 years ago. Did you know that?" "No," I said. I don't keep track of your lives." She nodded. She's 30 now. She's never held a job for more than 6 months. She's never finished anything she started. She's deeply unhappy and blames everyone but herself." She looked up at me. "And I did that to her. By making everything easy. By never letting her face consequences. By teaching her that she was special and deserving just by existing." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I want you to understand that I see it now. I see that I destroyed one daughter by giving her too much and destroyed another by giving her too little. And the daughter I neglected thrived anyway, and the daughter I coddled is falling apart." There was a long silence. "I don't forgive you," I said finally. "If that's what you came here for?" "No," she said. "I didn't come for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I came to tell you that I'm proud of you, that you were right to leave, that you were right to build a life without us. And that I'm sorry, not because I want you to let me back into your life, but because you deserve to hear it." She stood up. "That's all. Thank you for seeing me." She walked to the door, then paused and turned back. "Your father and I are getting divorced," she said. She's in therapy now. We're trying to help her, but it might be too late. We broke her, Lily, and you saved yourself before we could break you too." Then she left. I sat there for a long time after she was gone, staring at the door. I waited to feel something, triumph, vindication, even sadness. But I just felt tired. Tired of carrying the weight of their mistakes. Tired of being defined by their neglect, even in my triumph over it. I pulled out my phone and opened a note. I wrote, "To my younger self, the girl who stood at the window and watched them drive away. You will be okay. Better than okay. You will build something beautiful from the ashes of your pain. You will find people who love you the way you deserved to be loved all along. You will learn that being left behind was the best thing that ever happened to you because it forced you to forge your own path. Don't chase them. Don't try to catch up. Just keep walking forward, one step at a time, and watch as they disappear behind you. You are enough. You always were. Love, your future self. I saved the note and closed my phone. Then I went back to my designs, back to building the empire I'd created, back to the life that was wholly and completely mine. At 30, I was invited to give the commencement speech at the International Fashion Institute, the program I'd lost my scholarship to 12 years earlier. Standing at the podium, looking out at hundreds of graduating students in their caps and gowns, I thought about the girl I'd been. The girl who'd begged for a plane ticket, the girl who'd been left behind. I was supposed to be one of you, I told them. 12 years ago, I had a full scholarship to this program, but I couldn't afford the plane ticket to get here, and my family chose to support my sister's dreams instead of mine. I could see them leaning forward, engaged. I could have spent the rest of my life being bitter about that. I could have blamed them for every failure, every struggle. Instead, I made a choice. I chose to see being left behind not as abandonment, but as liberation. I smiled, because here's what I learned. The people who don't support you don't get to benefit from your success. The people who don't invest in you don't get to claim credit when you thrive. And sometimes, being left behind is the universe's way of setting you free to become who you were always meant to be. I looked around at their young, hopeful faces. Some of you have supportive families. Treasure them, support them back, build lives that honor the investment they made in you. But some of you don't. Some of you are here despite your families, not because of them. Some of you had to fight for every opportunity, every chance, every small success. Some of you know what it's like to be told you're not worth investing in. To those students, I want to say this: you are enough. Your worth is not determined by who supports you. Your success will be sweeter because you built it yourself. And one day, the people who left you behind will watch from a distance as you soar, and they'll realize what they lost. The audience erupted in applause. After the ceremony, dozens of students came up to thank me, to share their own stories of family neglect and personal triumph. And I realized that my story, the story that had started with a girl watching her family drive away, had become bigger than just me. It had become a testament to everyone who'd ever been left behind and chosen to forge ahead anyway. Today, at 35, I sit in my office overlooking Manhattan, running a fashion empire worth over $50 million. My designs are worn by people around the world. My company has expanded into sustainable fabrics, ethical manufacturing, and educational programs for young designers. I've written 3 more books. I've given hundreds of speeches. I've mentored countless young designers who remind me of who I was: talented, determined, and starving for someone to believe in them. Elena is semi-retired now, but she still comes to the office once a week to have coffee and offer advice. She's in her 60s, healthy and happy, proud of what we've built together. I have a partner. I met him 4 years ago at a charity event. He's a photographer who specializes in documenting social justice movements. He loves me for who I am, not what I can do for him. We have a beautiful loft in Brooklyn and 2 rescue dogs. I have friends, real friends, people I've chosen and who've chosen me back. I have a life that is joyful and purposeful and entirely my own. I never reconciled with my family. My mother sends a card every year on my birthday, simple cards that say thinking of you or proud of you. I don't respond, but I don't throw them away either. They sit in a drawer in my desk, a reminder of what was and what will never be. Claire has apparently found some stability. I've heard through mutual acquaintances that she's working as a social media manager for a small company and is in a serious relationship. I hope she's happy. I genuinely do. But I also have no desire to know more than that. My father passed away 2 years ago. Heart attack. My mother called to tell me, asked if I'd come to the funeral. I sent flowers and a card but didn't attend. He'd made his choices in life and I'd made mine. Sometimes people ask me if I regret not forgiving them. If I feel like I'm carrying around anger or bitterness, I always tell them the same thing: I'm not carrying anything. I put that burden down years ago when I watched them drive away and chose not to follow. Forgiveness isn't something you owe to people who hurt you. It's not a requirement for healing. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is acknowledge what happened. Accept that it's not your burden to carry, and build a life so beautiful that the past can't touch it. I did that. I built a life from ashes and determination. I built an empire from scraps and second chances. I built a family from strangers who loved me better than blood ever did. And I did it all because, in that crucial moment, I made the choice not to catch up to people who'd left me behind. Instead, I ran in a different direction entirely, and I've been running toward joy ever since. Last week, I received an invitation to be inducted into the Fashion Hall of Fame. At 35, I'll be one of the youngest designers ever honored. The ceremony will be televised. There will be press coverage. My face will be in magazines and newspapers around the world. I thought about that 18-year-old girl standing at the window, watching her family drive away. I thought about what I'd tell her if I could send a message back through time. I'd tell her, let them go, let them drive away, let them think they're leaving you behind. Because they're not leaving you behind. They're setting you free. And you're going to fly so high that they'll never catch up to you, no matter how hard they try. I accepted the invitation. Not for them, for me. For every person who's ever been left behind and had to build themselves back up from nothing. For everyone who's ever been told they weren't worth investing in. For everyone who's ever watched the people who should have loved them walk away. This is our moment. This is our triumph. This is our proof that being left behind is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of a better one, and we wrote it ourselves, the end.